Okay, John. So are you from Pampa originally? Or?
Yeah, born and raised here.
Okay. And then what happened that you joined the service? Did you join or were you drafted?
Basically, you could consider it joining because I went through ROTC in college.
Oh, okay. Where'd you go to college?
Well, I graduated from the University of Arkansas.
Okay. So you were in Arkansas going through college and with your junior ROTC, then you went into what branch?
Went into the Army.
Okay. And what were you assigned to do from there?
Well, I was assigned initially to be in the Transportation Corps and went to Fort Eustis, Virginia for 6 weeks, what they called TOBAC, which was Transportation Basic Officers Training. And then from there went to Fort Hood, Texas.
Okay. And from when did you first set foot in Vietnam then?
1st of August, 1971.
Okay. How old were you then?
I was a 23-year-old first lieutenant.
Okay. That made you, I've heard stories that say people who were 23 say they were, old man compared to some of the folks.
Yeah, when you're 23 and they call you the old man, it's a little awkward.
So where did you arrive in Vietnam?
Saigon, or Long Binh actually.
Mm-hmm.
And went from there to the officers' barracks and waited to go through the assignment process.
Mm-hmm.
There were 25 officers there at the time, and I was number 23 going through. The first 22 had all been assigned to Saigon or Long Binh with truck companies, car companies, various duties. And when I got there, the placement officer said, "Lieutenant Tripplehorn, what do you know about boats?" And I said, "You ski behind them and you fish out of them." And he said, "You're now the executive officer of the 1099th Medium Boat Company, and they're stationed down in the Delta." To which my response was, first of all, I didn't know what a medium boat was. And secondly, they're still having problems down in the Delta, are you sure? And he said, "Yeah, you're going." But it turned out that I had the best duty of all the guys that were stationed up at Long Binh and Saigon.
Why is that?
Because I had a job. So many of those guys would be through by 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning and go to the old club and start drinking. But I ran truck and boat convoys, both north and south. We were stationed at a base called Ben Tui, but it was right at Can Tho, which was the provincial capital there in the Delta. And so I ran truck and boat convoys going north and south from there.
Okay, I want to talk about that, but why were the other officers heading to the club to?
They didn't have anything else to do. They were bored to tears. They weren't running convoys. There were probably too many of them there, and they really didn't have anything to do.
Okay.
The friends of mine that were up there told me that numerous times, that they just didn't have anything to do.
So tell me about the Delta. Describe, give me an idea of where you were, the description of the place. What, hot?
Oh, Lord.
What were conditions like?
Oh, yeah, it was hot. I got there just in time for the national elections, so everything was on high alert. And I got there just in time, right towards the end, I guess, of the monsoon season, and you could be out in it and get absolutely soaked, and the sun had come out and you were completely dry in 10, 15 minutes. It was hot, it was humid, it was jungle everywhere you looked. The river, the Mekong River, is the nastiest thing. I think you could have plowed it if you'd wanted to, it was so nasty. And those people bathed in it and drank it, and a little bit of everything else in it. Nasty.
Yeah. So where were you running? Especially boats. What was on them? What?
Take your pick. Ammunition, aviation fuel, all sorts of supplies, just anything that you could move, we could put on the boats and take them down. They were called LCMH, which were landing craft maintenance, which meant they were bigger than the normal troop transports, but we transported troops too. And just anything that could be hauled, we hauled it.
How far up and down that river did they go?
We went all the way, our group went all the way up to Saigon north and all the way down to the southern tip of South Vietnam going south.
So you were in Mekong Delta is, I mean, you were kind of in the middle then and watched it all branch out from there.
Yeah, we were told that there's a place called the Parrot's Beak that's got some fame, and I guess our boats had even gone that far in the past. I didn't see it, but they had gone there in the past.
Okay. How many convoys of trucks and boats a day left there? I mean, I know it depends.
Well, usually it was only one boat convoy because I was the only one running convoys. I was the only officer at the time. We didn't have any other officers. We had a warrant officer, but he wasn't authorized to run convoys. So I would run boat convoys, which was a 3-day and 2-night trip from Ben Tui up to Saigon. And we always, if we went south in particular, we tried never to be in a port at night because Charlie was everywhere then, and so we would always try to anchor out in the middle of the river. But we tried to make sure we were in as big a area, as wide an area as possible, so Charlie didn't have a chance to try to swim up to the boats or come up to the boats in their dugouts and stuff.
I can't imagine what it was like to sit there on that boat and wonder what was going to come at you.
You wondered. One of the funny parts, when I first got there, the first convoy I ran, the guys all knew this is a brand new lieutenant, so we're going to have some fun with him. So we were anchored out in the middle of the river, and then we were way out in the middle. This was the wide part. And unbeknownst to the new lieutenant, to keep Charlie from swimming up to the boats underwater, periodically they would throw a hand grenade overboard. And so I was laid down on a cot. And of course, you have your weapon there, but you don't think much about it. And all of a sudden, there was this explosion, and it just vibrates off the hulls of those boats. And I came barreling out of there, had my M16, was ready for whatever, and they were all sitting there drinking a beer and sitting on crates and stuff, and they were rolling on the decks of the boats and laughing and carrying on because they had scared the thunder out of me. But that was my initiation.
Okay, welcome to the Delta.
Yeah, welcome to the 1099th.
Yeah, wow. So they really did use their grenades in that way.
Oh yeah,
wow.
Yeah. That's if Charlie's underwater and one of those things explodes, Charlie just kind of floats up.
Wow. And how much of that did you encounter, Charlie?
The irony of it was there were two zones in South Vietnam, friendly and free fire. Well, you couldn't find a Viet Cong or a North Vietnamese within 1,000 miles of the free fire zone because they knew exactly where it was in the jungle, and they never even got close to it. In the friendly zone, which was supposed to be ARVN controlled and friendly, that's where you always had a problem.
And ARVN was the Army of the Republic of Vietnam?
Marvin the ARVN.
Marvin the ARVN. Okay, so you would encounter them more there because
they knew we weren't allowed to fire back. In a free fire zone, you were not even supposed to have your weapons loaded because we were in a friendly area. Needless to say, we did have our weapons loaded, and if Charlie fired, we returned fire. And you'd always have to say, yeah, we returned fire, but we took fire from in there, and that was just the way it was. Our guys were always being called up, and I'd have to go in and say, well, they did what they were told to do. We were supposed to keep moving, but you weren't supposed to be a target without returning fire. So if our guys got in trouble, I'd go up and tell them, well, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
You'll have to court-martial a whole bunch of us then.
So they were very definitely trying to stick the rules to you.
Yeah, because we were in the business of nation building and government building, and of course the media played an enormous part. If we did the slightest thing that was amiss, the media was all over it, and of course the media was so anti-military during that that if you blinked wrong, they would try to make something out of it. So anytime you shot up a supposedly friendly village, which wasn't friendly, and you were taking fire there, then it was all your fault, and you're, you know, baby killers and baby burners and women killers and all that kind of garbage.
So, when were you most, did you have a moment you were most scared?
The first time we took mortar rounds coming in.
Coming in when you first got to Vietnam?
In the compound, yeah. The sirens went off and we heard the explosions, and I heard other officers, we were in the officers' barracks, and I heard them pounding down, going, and I stuck my head out and I asked the one old boy, I said, "Is this what I think it is?" And he said, "You damn right it is." And so we were all hot-footing it to our company areas and grabbing flak jackets and everything else, and basically it was harassment fire. Charlie would drop mortars in from time to time just so you didn't get a good night's sleep.
You sleep with one eye open, huh?
Or your boots close by or something. Mm-hmm. Your fast starts and high jumps, if that was what you could get on the quickest.
There you go. How long did you do that Delta?
I was there 4.5 months.
How many boats? I mean, what would you, when you had a convoy, what would you?
Anywhere from 3 to 8 boats, usually
Okay.
3 to 5. I don't remember ever running an 8 one, but I've heard of 8 boat convoys. We had 13 boats, 180 men.
Did you lose people?
I did.
I can't imagine what that would be like.
Yep.
What happened when you returned?
When I came back, we were on a bus, and it turned out to be basically all officers. And we had a major that was the bus commander, for lack of a better term. And we came out of Travis Air Force Base going to the center where they would process you one way or the other. And out there were all these long-haired hippie individuals, the Jane Fonda types, and they were throwing stuff at the bus and saying unpleasantries. And so we were ready to get off the bus, and we were going to have a get right with Jesus conversation with him. He wouldn't let us off the bus because we were commissioned officers by the government, so we told him we'd all take our insignias off our collars, and then we would just be E1 privates, and he still wouldn't let us off the bus. But I remember those people, and I have for lack of a more diplomatic way to put it, I have a violent hatred for those people still. And that's been 50 years ago, and I shouldn't, but I do.
What? How do you put that in perspective now?
I can say one good thing has come out of it, and I'm proud of it, is that after the way the people, not everybody, but a good segment of this country treated the Vietnam vets, I think they're ashamed of themselves. And the guys that are serving now are getting golden treatment for the most part and being respected and appreciated. And I think it's a guilty conscience on a lot of people's minds and hearts that the way they treated the non-vets, they're ashamed of themselves, so they're not ever going to do that again. So the young guys coming back are getting far, far nicer, more cordial treatment than we got, and I'm thrilled that we contributed that to it. That's our contribution as much as anything, to make sure that nobody ever gets treated like that again.
Did you come to an understanding not of the way they treated you, but of what the protests were about?
No.
No?
Absolutely not.
Why not? Tell me.
Because their country was at war. Now, I didn't particularly jump into wanting to go to war, but I knew my country was at war, so I was going to go. And for those people to be burning the flag, to this day I won't tolerate that. My wife says I'll probably get in trouble someday because of it. You can disagree and not riot and burn and say, hell no, we won't go. Those were cowards. They ran off to Canada. They betrayed us. Our politicians betrayed us. They made us the only generation that this country has ever had lose a war. They made us lose it.
How
and,
so?
and I resent that.
How'd they make you lose?
Because they wouldn't support us. You know, when young guys, and I was older, but when young 18, 19-year-olds come home and get spit on, that's devastating. When you see politicians, Hollywood, who are such betrayers, saying the things that they said back then. When you see somebody like Jane Fonda that goes over there and gets with the NVA and talks about this country, that's devastating to the morale, and most of us still carry some of that. I don't particularly. Sometimes I can get wound up. But one of my most fervent wishes and hopes is that Jane Fonda burns in hell.
Have you been to the Vietnam Memorial Wall
Yes.
in D.C.? What was that experience like?
I have two friends on it. One of them was killed on the USS Forrestal when it exploded out in the Gulf of Tonkin, and the other one was a platoon, or was a squad leader sergeant, and kicked the door open in a hooch, and it was mined, booby-trapped. So I got the, you know, the pencil her name off. It's a very impressive monument. It's my opinion that has too damn many names on it, because we could have ended that war in nothing flat if we'd have fought to win, but we didn't fight to win. We fought to nation build and to appease public opinion or world opinion, and not fight a war like they did World War II to go in and win. Of course, we haven't fought to win since World War II.
Do you think Vietnam changed the way the country and the people that live here view war? And do we have a stomach for it anymore?
The good folks do. The left doesn't. And they're foolish enough to think, recently there was somebody on TV, a notable person that said, if we just let the Muslims know we love them, we can end all the problems. And I thought to myself, you can't be that stupid. War is a fact of life. Like it or not, there's always somebody out there that's going to want to try to enforce their will on somebody else, and you better be ready to stand your ground, or you're going to be the one that gets run over. There's still a lot of good people. It's a lot of real good young people that stand up and volunteer every day. And that's why you have the VFW and the American Legion, AMVETS, because we're proud of those people. And that's why we don't let the "we won't goes" into our organization, because they're not welcome.
What did you take away from that experience as far as how did it change you?
I guess in one respect I had intentions of making the military my career. But when I came back and thought about, if this is the way my government's going to run a war, getting 17, 18, 19-year-olds killed, and I can't exactly understand why they're getting killed, then I'm going to the house. Now, I guess if I am perceived as the quintessential redneck, a title I take great pride in, and I will stand with these young people who are willing to volunteer. I'll stand with them till my last breath. But I fear, and I've watched it, I fear we have more of a threat internally than we do externally.
How so?
Because of the left, who wants to change this country, who wants to take God out of this country, who wants to put all of us to be equal, except for the elitist who will run everything and tell us all how to do it. I'm 71 years old and I'm still working. I like to work, so I probably would be working, but I think a lot of us are going to have to put in overtime to help undo the mess that's been created over the last 8 years. and I don't know if we're going to fix it or not.
What do you do?
I run a electrical warehouse for a sizable electrical contractor here in town.
Okay.
I farm, run a few head of cows, commercially bale hay.
So did you come back to Pampa when you were done with the service, or?
No, I went to Dallas, Texas. I was young and full of vinegar and decided to go down there where there were lots of available females, and it was a pretty fun time, and I spent 3 years down there as an ad valorem tax consultant.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I wore a coat and tie 5 days a week, which is completely out of my demeanor.
And then you'd had enough of that.
I'd had enough of that entirely, so I came home to farm and farmed for a number of years, and then I was a Gray County Veteran Service Officer for a number of years, 11 years, and I've driven a truck, sold insurance for a while,
Done just all kinds of things.
just
then,
taking a little run at a lot of things.
huh? Okay. Now, what was your rank when you were over there?
First Lieutenant,
First Lieutenant. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for your service.
thank you.
And thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.